Hello and welcome to this session. This session I'm going to take you through connection diagram. The connection diagram allows you to draw diagrams which have shapes and connections between that and another shape. There are two ways of drawing connection diagrams. One is updating the existing Visio page. The other one is by selecting a new page and drawing a brand new diagram. The first option, I'm going to look at the first option first, which is around creating a new diagram. And for that, you need to be able to select the page size that you're looking at. So I'm going to randomly select A2 page size. The next, it's going to ask you for the record set down the bottom here, which holds the relationships between the two shapes or entities that you want to connect together. In this case, this is the relationship table, which is shown down the bottom here, where we have a parent type, a child type, and a type of connection relationship. And those correspond to these prompts you see it up here, which is basically asking you what is the unique reference for the parent or component one, when we use the parent. What's the type of relationship, which is defined in this data as the parent class. So we know that. What is the parent? What is it? It happens to be an application. So that's the parent class. The next, we're asking what's the unique reference for the other side of the connection, which happens to be the child column. And it's next asking me for what is the type of that child. So that child obviously can vary. It could be, in this example down here, it shows business capability, information capability, an application relationship, etc., etc. So here I'm going to select the child class, and that fills that. And then it's asking lastly, there are some additional attributes you can connect to, which is a connection unique reference and a description for the connection. In this data set I don't have either, but the most important column that is needed and is mandatory is what's the type of relationship, which is this column here. And you can see some examples: realizes, realized by, and there's more examples as you scroll down that data set. So I'm going to just select that, and what you'll see in the next drop down or next panel down here is it's looked down this column and worked out what are all the relationships which are possible with the set of data that we have. So that allows us then therefore to either select them all, but if we select them all, there's a lot of other attributes to fill in as well to make those relationships work. So I'm just going to filter down here. I'm going to deselect them all and just focus in on that. We only want to look at applications which have a realized relationship with business capability. Okay, so once I've done that, it's filtered the subsequent column or panels down to just the values which are pertinent to that filter. So now we can see we have realized and realized by. What's the line type connection? So this is after the shape, or the one-dimensional shape that I should use to denote and draw the line between the two objects or shapes. I'm going to use Archimate template. I'm going to use realization because it's a realized relationship to draw that. The next panel has prompted me for I've understood I've got these two components called application and business capability, but what record set down here do they correspond to bring in the additional data that's associated with the names that I see in the parent or the child column? So basically it's going to prompt me for the record set. So conveniently for the records, the ID that's called applications, I'm going to choose the record set applications. And next it's asking me what column am I going to match back to the relationship table, which is up here? What am I going to use to do the matching? And in this case, I'm going to use the name. And then for business capability, it's obviously the business capability table. And I'm going to match on the name again. Okay. Once I've selected those and the matches, it now prompted me to say, well, okay, I need to understand what shapes am I going to use to represent these two objects or elements. So it's going to prompt me for the stencil, and I'm going to select in both cases the Archimate stencil, and it's asking me for what shape, master shape, do I use in here. In this case, for applications, I'm going to use application component, and for business capability, I'm going to scroll down, I'm going to use the capability shape. Okay, so that's all good. Now if I go down, it's also asking me what components do I want to update on the diagram. Now you can select to reduce all of them that are shown, but on a new diagram it makes sense just to leave them as they are and to actually select everything. And also the next panel is blank also. That will come its own when we look at how to update an existing diagram. Okay, so now I've selected all that, I'm going to press OK, and that's going to go away and generate a diagram. Okay, what you'll see is it's putting in both the application and the business capability components and all the relationships between them. And it's not going to do anything smart, it's just laying them out in a grid formation across the page, and it's going to go test the boundary of the page onto the right, but it obviously that it's going to be greater than the actual length of the page going down, or height of the page. So we'll see here this scrolling off the bottom of the page. This eventually say finished, or there could be an error or something, but hopefully it finished successfully. So if we exit out of that, we'll have this this layout here, which isn't particularly visually appealing and will need shapes moving around to line them up effectively. And also you'll notice that certain data is brought in, and as with other diagrams, we can sort of filter out certain things. So maybe you just want to show the name rather than the name and ID. So there's a little bit of work to be done on these diagrams to move them around and get them into a reasonable shape. You can update these diagrams. If you run the same process again, you'll be able to update the diagram. In that instance, it recognizes the shape and its position on the diagram already and doesn't move that. It will just update the lines and connections between those shapes, but not actually move where the shape is located on the diagram. So once you've done the layout, post generating this, you won't need to do it again if you're updating it. So that's all great. I'm going to show you another example here where we're going to update an existing diagram, and this existing diagram is one, if I just focus in, that this diagram has been generated using the box diagram, but filtering on just human resources records, rows, and from the record set on business capability, and then also just laying out so we've got one element per column effectively. So this gives us a list of, here's all human resource management, and these are all the sub capabilities within that. So now what I want to do is I want to mix this, having drawn this diagram using the box diagram, with the connection diagram. So what I'm going to do is click on the connection diagram, and I'm going to say I want to use an existing page, which happens to be page 7, so we're going to select that. And now I want to make the connections between these business capabilities and the applications they're associated with. Now that relationship is held in the relationship table. So again, as with the previous diagram, it's going to prompt me for those relationships. So the parent type, the child, and the child type, and also the overall type of relationship. Okay, so that should come up with the same data that we saw before. And again, we're going to filter and we're going to take out everything apart from the application to business capabilities. These are business capabilities we selected when we drew the diagram originally. So that's all great now. We have those we've pre-selected that. From a connection component, we're going to select from the stencil that we want to use realization, which is what we did before. We need to associate with the record sets, which we did previously. So both of these are business capabilities. Match on name. And then it's going to prompt us for the shape type. So I'm still going to select the same shape type for the application. It's going to be ARCHI, application component, business capability. We're going to go ARCHI business capability, but to be honest, I could have selected anything in here, because when I come to the next dialog box down here, this is one where we are going to start to look at saying, well, okay, I've already got the business capabilities on the page. I do not want to update them. I don't want to add in more business capabilities. I want to use these, and I want to bring in the applications which are associated with those capabilities, i.e. in terms of the realization relationship. So I'm going to deselect business capabilities and just leave on the applications. So what that means is that we're going to bring in the relationships for applications, draw shapes of the applications, but we are not going to introduce any new business capabilities. And the last panel down here is asking us, it's looked at the page and it says, actually when I look at this page, there are two different types of shapes on here. There's the outer shape is actually being created using a value stream shape, and the inner one is used using a capability shape. But it wants to know what are these related to, and these are both related to business capability. They're not application, they're both business capability. So what that tells the generator is that, okay, these are all business capabilities. We don't want to update business capabilities. We just want to associate the applications that are related to those capabilities as held in the relationship table. So when I hit OK now, what's going to happen, and it will run through, is it's starting to draw the relationship between those capabilities and applications that have a relationship to them. Now the way it's finished doing that, well, there wasn't many on there. Not unfortunately, but the way we draw the diagram is we put the new values at the bottom of the page, just off the page effectively, to cater for and however much data that we've already drawn on that page, which is a bit of unknown. So there is some more work to do to move these around. But what you'll see now is that the application objects it's dragged onto this relationship or onto this page are only the ones that are related to the capabilities that are shown up the top here. So we've got certain capabilities which obviously seem to not have any relationship. We've got some which have multiple relationships, some which have single relationships. For each shape you click on, you can see all the data. that's associated with them. If you hover over, you'll be able to see the pop-up window of the description. And the same for the lines. If you look at the lines, it's brought in the data associated with that as well, in terms of that and showing that. So there is a bit of work to do afterwards, but it's drawn the main shape for you. You might need to do the layouts, but if any refresh of any of these connection diagrams, it respects where you've positioned a certain shape and an entity. So it knows this is an application called payroll system, and therefore if you ever need to make a relationship with the application payroll system again, it knows where it exists on the diagram and won't move that shape. It will only redraw all the connections associated with that shape. Hopefully this has been useful. Thank you for your time. Thank you.